The Rittman community is mourning the loss of Sergeant Scott Ries, killed in the line of duty this past Sunday. The funeral service will be held at Northside Christian Church in Wadsworth. That's coming up in about 30 minutes. And good afternoon. I'm Russ Mitchell from the WKYC studios. We are joining you to bring you that funeral services in its entirety. Once again, it begins at 1 o'clock, about 30 minutes from now. And for the next 30 minutes or so, we're going to get a recap of how we got to this solemn day. Go to our reporters, Natalie Clydesdale, Aaron Sullivan, and David Greenberg, outside the church, on the procession route, and here in the studio, give you some insight into some of the imagery and traditions we'll see today. Also, I'm joined here at the desk by our friend, retired Elyria Police Chief Dwayne Whiteley, for his perspectives today. Chief Whiteley, it's always good to see you, unfortunately, under these circumstances, but we do appreciate you coming in.
Thank you for having me.
We'll talk to you in just a moment. But first, we want to get a look at the life of Sergeant Scott Ries, who he was, and why so many are honoring him today.
He was all about the community and his family, and he was just a good guy, really good guy.
Scott Ries was born November 13, 1971 in Barberton. He graduated from Chippewa High School in 1990 before attending The Ohio State University and later Hocking College, where he earned associate degrees in police science and fish and wildlife management. In May of 1997, he married someone he called the love of his life, Michelle Dawn Carpenter. Scott dedicated nearly 3 decades to law enforcement, serving with the Wayne County Sheriff's Office from 1996 to 2015, when he joined the Rittman Police Department, eventually attaining the rank of sergeant.
For 10 years, he wore the city's badge. He gave his life answering a call from people who needed help. He stood between violence and the people he swore to protect, and he did not step back.
Throughout his career, Sergeant Ries was known for his professionalism, integrity, and unwavering commitment to protecting others. Outside of his life in the force, friends say Scott was deeply involved in his community, where he was a member of the Doylestown Lions Club, the Chippewa High School Athletic Booster Club, and the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 94. He found joy in fishing, taking trips to Lake Erie, hunting, and walking his beloved dog. Above all else, Scott was described as a devoted husband, an exceptional father, and a dedicated family man. His wife and daughters were the center of his world.
We were laughing his one daughter about her car. He said, you know how girls are with cars.
Sergeant Scott Ries is survived by his wife, Michelle, his daughters, Abby and Maddie, his mother, Janelle, brother, Kevin, and his niece and nephew, Shelby and Trace.
We will hold these families up, we will hold each other up, and we will come through this the way we always have, together.
And once again, funeral services for Sergeant Ries take place in less than a half hour at Northside Christian Church in Wadsworth. That's where our Natalie Clydesdale is right now. She is outside of the church to tell us what's going on right now. Natalie, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you as well, Russ. As the start of the service is getting closer, the crowd here continues to grow. It's a very quiet, somber atmosphere as we've seen a steady flow of people walking into Northside Christian Church, including law enforcement officers from agencies across Ohio who have come here to pay their respects. Just to name a few, we've seen patrol cars from agencies across Wayne and Summit counties, along with Columbus Police, Ohio State University Police, the Ohio State Highway Patrol, Strongsville Police, and Cleveland Metro Parks Police. Rittman City Manager told me she expected a tremendous show of support today, and that is exactly what we're seeing as this church fills ahead of the service. I was in Rittman the night this tragedy unfolded, and what stood out to me was just how close-knit this community is. Even into the early morning hours, people were standing outside their homes, checking on their neighbors, trying to make sense of what happened. And today, Russ, that same sense of community is on display once again.
All right, Natalie Clydesdale outside of the church there. Thank you so much. And like Natalie said, that funeral services begins at 1 o'clock. I want to tell you about the procession that will take place afterwards. That will be from the church to the Rittman Cemetery, where Sergeant Ries will be laid to rest. We're told that's about a 15-minute drive. And the Rittman Police Headquarters is along that procession route. And as Sergeant Police and Fire honor Sergeant Ries, other departments are stepping in to cover shifts. Aaron Sullivan is outside of the Rittman Police Department. Aaron, good afternoon to you. What are you seeing right now?
Russ, good afternoon. Well, we've been here for a few hours now. We're on East Ohio Avenue, and I want to point to your direction right along here. This entire street was filled with different departments this morning. We can also see that Norton police are here. We actually spoke to their chief on the phone, who did confirm that Doylestown and Wayne County are also helping out Rittman today as they remember Sergeant Scott Ries. Now, I also want to direct your attention to this growing memorial we've seen. Since Monday morning, so many flowers, candles, balloons have been left here to honor the memory of Sergeant Ries. We even spoke with one woman who traveled all the way from Canton just to show her respects. And even this morning, I know it's about 12:35 right now, but we've seen so many residents, not only residents, but also members of other departments that aren't even just filling in shifts, coming by, saying a prayer, and going to those services later. Now, as we know, we are going to be streaming this later on, but we are going to be here talking to residents before our evening news tonight, so definitely stick with us. Russ?
Okay, Erin Sullivan. By the way, Erin is the newest member of our team. We'll introduce her formally later on, but we do appreciate her coverage today. And once again, Erin, welcome to Channel 3. Of course, praise for Sergeant Ries has been pouring in, as you saw there in that live report. We, in fact, spoke with a member of his family, his father-in-law, Glenn Carpenter, who gave us some insight into their relationship.
Scott married my daughter, Michelle, and of course we've known him ever since then, and just a fantastic son-in-law. He was here for a purpose, to protect his community, and he done very well. An awful situation, but what we need to do is turn it into praising the Lord and doing that in such a way that Scott will never be forgotten.
And joining me here in the studio is retired Elyria Police Chief Dwayne Whiteley. Once again, Chief, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
I want to go back to something Erin said that we talked about. It is fairly common. It is, in fact, tradition for other departments to step in at a time like this to help the police department that's involved in a police shooting. Is that correct?
Absolutely. The purpose is, there's many purposes, but first, the department itself is going through a very difficult time, and it's hard to handle calls for service while you're going through that yourself. You want to be clear-minded when you're handling those calls, so having other departments step in to handle the calls for service is a huge help, not just to the police department, but to the community.
You, in fact, now teach the next generation of law enforcement officers. I understand you took a class to the calling hours for Sergeant Ries yesterday. First of all, why was that important for you to do that, and what was the reaction that the class had?
Well, first, there's a couple reasons why I like to have the class attend a wake or a funeral for a fallen officer in the area. First, it is a grim reminder that this can happen, and you need to be on your toes, and you need to take the time to think things through before you act rashly. Secondly, and I think most importantly, it shows the cadets that they are not being a police officer by themselves. It involves their family. So it is not an individual job, it is a whole family job. So when they're doing their job, they have to think of the family too.
As you and I have discussed, as you have in fact you told me, if obviously you know about this a lot more than I do, there is, if you take this job, you know there is some inherent danger
Yes.
in it, certainly. I wonder what the reaction was of some of the class members who went to the services yesterday or the calling hours. What did they say to you afterwards? What do you think they were thinking?
Well, first, a couple of them said thank you. And I said, for what? And he said, for having us come to this. It had a big effect on them. We talked about it this morning when class started, and they were just commenting about the family and how important the family is. And so I do think it had the intended effect. And I do think first, I've told you this on Monday, is a good class. Mm-hmm. They're listening, they're understanding what's going on. And I think this just drove the point home even further.
We have talked about this before. You, of course, were Elyria Police Chief, I believe, for less than 2 weeks when you lost an officer.
Yes.
in your department. Kind of give us an idea, once again, what a department goes through when something like this happens.
Well, there's a bit of a shock. You know it can happen, but you don't expect it to happen. And when it does happen, there's a bit of disbelief of what's going on. And I'm going to be honest with you, most of our officers still did their jobs afterwards. We had help from other agencies too, mm-hmm. And we thank them for that. But the officers went about doing their jobs the way they're supposed to, which is really a tribute to them. The department is going to get close they're going to get to the point where they become one unit, and they deal with this together. And it's very difficult for them to deal with it, but they do. And the community will start to support them too. Not that we don't get the support regularly, but it is more vocal in times like this.
Yeah, we're seeing a video of memorial, as Aaron was telling us about, outside the police station there. I'm told as many as 1,000 police cars from various municipalities from across the state will be there today. What does that show of support mean to the family? What does it mean to the community?
First, the family gets a true understanding that they're not alone, that there are law enforcement agencies and officers from around the state and the country that are grieving with them. The community steps up. They see the enormous number of police cars from all over the place. It has a lasting impact on them and the family.
You, in fact, spoke to the family. I want to talk to you about that when we see you in just a few minutes now. But I want to talk to folks at home about the day following this shooting, which was shooting happened on Sunday. And on Monday, the community came together outside the Rittman Police headquarters for a vigil. Our Sia New Yorker was there that day as the community mourned.
Hundreds gathered at Rittman Police headquarters Monday evening to mourn the lives of those gone too soon.
Brother Sergeant Scott Ries, our sisters Christine, McWilliams, and her beautiful daughter McKinley McWilliams. Enter your kingdom in your loving arms, Lord.
Sergeant Scott Ries was killed in the line of duty Sunday night after responding to a break-in shooting on Chippewa Trail that left a total of 4 people dead, including the 2 victims and the suspected shooter.
And for 10 years, he wore the city's badge. He gave his life answering a call from people who needed help. He stood between violence and the people he swore to protect, and he did not step back.
Holding candles and wearing blue, some laid flowers at this makeshift memorial to pay their respects.
I respect the law, and I respect what he served for and he died for. And I'm sad about it. And I just felt like I needed to be here to stand with everyone around me.
Members of the Sharpton family tell me they knew both Sergeant Ries and the McWilliams mother and daughter.
We came out to support the families.
This is tough.
Yeah.
We're a small community and everybody knows everybody else, so this was a shock. Yeah, really a shock.
Leaders calling on the community to lean on each other in the coming days.
And we're together. So again, thank you. Take your time, and we'll get through this.
And closing the night holding hands, their voices lifted in song.
Again, that was Lindsay Buckingham reporting. As Chief Whiteley told us a few minutes ago, along with the Rittman community, several local officers from other police departments are showing their support. That includes Lorain Police Officer Brent Payne, who experienced losing an officer in the line of duty just last summer. Lindsay Buckingham spoke to him.
Among a steady stream of supporters today was Lorain Police Officer Brent Payne. He showed up here today with food and support for Rittman PD and for an officer he never met.
We didn't have to know him. I mean, he's a fellow officer that gave his life in the line of duty, and we just felt that we owed it to him to come down here and offer some support.
Less than a year ago, Payne was on the other side of that support, shot in the line of duty himself, alongside officers Peter Gale and Philip Wagner, who gave his life on that call.
We received the same type of support, so we felt compelled to come down here and do the same thing.
Being back on the side of a tragedy like this isn't easy.
I'm fighting to get back to work. I will go back to work, but in the meantime, I'm well enough to come down here and lend a hand and lend support.
Payne says police officers need it more than ever.
They are here to support you. Now is your time to support them.
Because for the officers wearing the badge right now, the hardest part is still ahead.
the next few days, the next few weeks, the next few months, the next year are going to be difficult. Don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to help each other. Just be there for one another.
Officer Payne also shared with me that coming here was automatic. There was no hesitation. He wanted to come support these officers because he truly has been there, even on the other side of the tragedy. We also saw a number of different officers from various departments showing their respects as well. In Rittman, Lindsay Buckingham, 3 News.
Once again, the funeral for Sergeant Ries is set to take place in about 15 minutes right now. And again, this is the day to honor him with that funeral services. But we also want to talk about Christine McWilliams and her 13-year-old daughter, McKinley, who were also killed in this tragedy. The funeral services for them are set to take place this weekend. Our David Greenberg now joins me here in the studio with more on how the Rittman community is honoring their lives. David, good afternoon to you.
Yeah, Russ, good afternoon. We know tomorrow will be another sad day in Rittman as Christy McWilliams and her daughter McKinley will be laid to rest. Now, earlier this week, we heard so much from friends of the family about what these two meant to the community. Dozens lining the streets of Rittman Wednesday as the procession to the funeral home turned into an outpouring of grief, helping to bring the mother and daughter home and to make sure they did not arrive alone. Now, we spoke with McKinley's classmates who said she and her mother were the kind of people who would just make you smile. Now they're learning how to hold on to those memories as the reality of their deaths sets in.
She was always she had a good humor and she was always energetic. I've never seen her really sad. Every morning, well, almost every morning, I would talk to her and she was just talking to her just made me happy. It made me feel really sad. At first I was really shocked, I didn't really believe it, I didn't think it was real, and then it got I just felt numb, I couldn't believe that that actually happened.
A visitation for Christy and McKinley will be tomorrow from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. at Rittman United Methodist Church with a memorial service to follow immediately after. We know there were many victims here in this tragedy. Also want to give you an update on the status of K-9 Officer Vic of the Wayne County Sheriff's Office who was wounded during that shooting on Sunday night. Now, we are told that Vic is at home resting and recovering after he was struck by bullet fragments fired by the suspected shooter with fragments in his back, near his spine and chest. And earlier this week, you see the video here on your screen of Vic being released from the Veterinary Hospital in Akron. Community members in Rittman organizing fundraisers to help support Vic and his human handler as his recovery continues. It has not been determined yet whether or not Vic will return to full service, but it was at least a positive sign to see him walking out on all 4 legs. Russ.
Yeah, it was so nice to see so many people there greeting Vic as he left the hospital. All right, David Greenberg, thank you very much. Once again, we're joined by former Elyria Police Chief Dwayne Whiteley. Chief Whiteley, let me talk about K-9 officer, or Vic there, police dog, as some people still call them. How important are K-9 officers in the line of duty?
Oh, extremely important. The things that K-9s can do, we can't. First, their sense of smell is somewhere between 10,000 and 100,000 better than a human, so they can sniff out things. They're excellent at tracking. They're excellent at drug sniffing. And then utility, when you need to bring them in to take somebody down who's fighting, it's a less lethal option and very helpful with that. They become part of the community, they become part of the department. When something happens to them, it has a devastating effect on the people. In terms of training police dogs, what are we talking about here? Well, generally, it's at least a 2-month process with the handler and the K-9 together. That is after they've had several months of training just the K-9 by himself. And then once they're together and they have to make sure they match well. And once that happens, they're generally training either weekly or biweekly as a unit. Yeah, if Vic retires from service, I guess it's safe to say, not I guess, I know, it's safe to say that that's okay. He's done his duty. He's done his duty, yes. He's been a big help. I want to talk to you about Sergeant Ries's family. I know you got to meet with the family. Give me an idea, if you will. And I want to tell folks at home, when we go to this funeral services in about 11 minutes from now, this is going to be the stream from the church. We do not have cameras inside. We are being very respectful of that. This is a live stream from the church that the family and the church
Church are providing to us. Just want to make sure folks know that. Once again, you spoke to the family. Give me an idea of the things they told you, if you don't mind, and what the family is going through at this moment.
First, it's indescribable to say what they're going through. I can tell you that just awesome people. Everybody in line was so nice. Given what they're going through, they took the time to talk to everybody who came through. And you know they're grieving. I got to talk with his mother quite a bit, and you know how devastating is that?
Yeah.
You know, lose your child. It's hard to imagine that we were a whole lot of help for what they're going through. I hope we helped a little bit, but you know, I know they definitely helped us.
And some insight of this community is quite fascinating. We heard from the mayor and the city manager the other day who were talking about this, and we got a real good sense of just how close this community is. I believe the mayor went to school with Christine. And the manager, the city manager, also knew the father of several of the people here. When we talk about a close-knit community here, kind of give me an idea of what that's like and how important it is for those folks to come together as well.
Well, you know, in a city this size, everybody pretty much knows everybody. They go out, they golf together, they party together, they enjoy their company, and when something like this happens, it is truly a devastating effect to the whole community.
Oh, yeah, certainly. I'm going to just ask you, and again, as someone who has gone through this before, a police chief who has gone through this before, Chief Shows there in Rittman, I believe, is a 30-year-plus vet in law enforcement, so he's certainly been around. But as someone who has gone through this, if you were to give him some advice on what to do at this point and how to handle his department and how to just get folks through this, what would you tell him?
Spend a lot of time with them. Talk to them. If there's a need you see, make sure they get it. If they need to talk to other people, bring them in. Don't forget the family. The whole department will be supporting the family, and they need to. It is all one when you're talking about something like this, that the department, the officers, the dispatchers, the record staff, and the family are all one right now.
Yeah.
So just support them in what they do. And for the chief, don't forget about yourself. You need to talk to people too.
That's a very good advice there. All right, Chief, see you again in just a moment. Our Natalie Clydesdale, as we told you earlier, is outside the church where the service is set to begin. That's the Northside Christian Church in Wadsworth. Service set to begin in about 7 minutes from now. Natalie, look, it's raining out there. Tell us what you're seeing.
Good afternoon, Russ. Well, a strong sense of community has been a constant here all week, with people supporting the victims, their families, the police department, and today it's taking a different form. Even through the rain, we're still seeing hundreds of people gather here to honor Sergeant Scott Ries, with family, friends, community members, and law enforcement officers from all across Ohio filing in the church to pay their respects and say their final goodbyes. We've seen patrol cars from agencies all across the state, including from Wayne and Summit counties, along with Columbus Police, Ohio State University Police, the Ohio State Highway Patrol, Strongsville Police, and Cleveland Metro Parks Police. It's just a powerful show of support for the entire Rittman community. And like you said, Russ, this is about to start in about 5 minutes.
All right, Natalie Clydesdale, thank you so much. And as the service begins at 1 o'clock today, the church will actually put the stream up in about a minute. So we'll get an insight into what it looks like inside the church in a minute or so. Chief Whiteley, once again, you talked about the family. And one thing that you told me that I think is stuck with me and I think sticks with a lot of people is the family is getting a lot of support today. But as time goes on, some of that goes away. People have their own lives and whatever. I guess if you were to talk to the folks in Rittman, you addressed this a few minutes ago, what advice would you have moving forward, not just today, but in the weeks, months, and years to come?
Just be there. Talk to them. Spend time with them. Do community events together that honor him. Like tomorrow in Elyria, we have the Kerstetter 5K that they do annually and have since the July after Jimmy was killed. And it brings everybody together, and it's really an awesome event. So I would do stuff like that. Just keep doing things that honor him.
Yeah, I know we have seen families in the past that unfortunately have gone through this, become advocates for these types of things. You talked about the event that's happening place in Elyria. Also, we know that on Sunday and Monday there will be events in Rittman as well. I believe there'll be some food trucks. There'll be different sorts of remembrances there. That's going to be Sunday and Monday. You can get that information on our website, wkyc.com. So certainly that is something that people should look out for. And as you said, they should support as well. When we hear, and we talked about this a second ago, 1,000 police cars perhaps out there. And it's raining right now, so we're not really getting a good sense of what that is like. But just kind of, we've seen that. You and I have both seen that. Give me an idea of just how stunning a visual like that is to everybody involved.
You really have to see it to really understand the effect. It just goes on, and you know, they all have their lights on. When we were taking Jimmy's body from the hospital to the coroner's office in Cleveland, there were cars as far as you could see in both ahead and behind, and that was at like 6 o'clock in the morning. It was still dark out, and you could see because of all the lights. It is truly a sight to see, and it's an immediate example of the amount of support out there for the officers, the family, and honoring the officer who was killed.
And again, just for folks at home, when you say Jimmy, you're talking about Jimmy Kirsten,
yes,
the officer in your department. I want to take up a look at the live stream from the church. Actually, these are pictures now of Sergeant Ries there. Certainly seeing that there. There's when he was married. And these will be shown at the service as well. Let me ask you, Chris, is this being shown right now? Are we watching something? This is being shown at the church right now, what we're looking at right now before the service begins in about 3 minutes. The Northside Christian Church in Wadsworth, when appointed, is a non-denominational church. And we know that these services are all different. And there we are, the stream of the church right there that looks like they've put that up. So we're seeing the inside of the church right now. Chief, non-denominational church, all of these are different for religious reasons. Taking that out of it, any imagery or anything we could look for today in this funeral service that is fairly common in police funerals, in particular?
Well, you're going to have different people, different positions coming up to talk and talk about Scott and what Scott was like as a family man, which you could tell from his pictures. He truly was a family man. As an officer, as a sergeant, and how he did his job, as an example to everybody else, which is what we all should strive for, is to be the example to other officers, and he truly was. So they'll get up, they'll talk about that. There'll be some remembrances. One of the most difficult things for me is the final call that they do at the end. To me, that's heartbreaking. Yeah.
Certainly. Oh, I can understand that. And we watched some police officers walk away. We're about a minute and a half from this church service. Now, this is, unfortunately, Chief, you and I have been in these seats before under these circumstances, and we know that this is a little different than other ones that we've had of late, in that there's usually a procession from the funeral home to the church that morning. The body was actually brought to the church a few days ago. We will see, however, a procession after the ceremony to the burial site, which is Rittman Cemetery, and we will not be a part of that. The family obviously deserves privacy there. We will not bring you pictures of that. There will be people, even in the rain, lining the streets.
Yes.
I guess when you see that as a police officer, again, going back to the family, when the family sees that, what does that do to see the folks lined up like that?
It gives, in my opinion, it gives the family an understanding of how important Scott was to everyone else. Not just to them, but to everyone else. And when you talked about the cars with the distance, it's quite possible that the lead car will be at the cemetery before the final car leaves the church. That's how long 1,000 cars would be.
Wow. Chief Dwayne Whiteley, once again, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. It is coming up on 1 o'clock. I'm told the service has started. Let's go to the Northside Christian Church in Wadsworth and the funeral services of Rittman Police Sergeant Scott Ries.
On behalf of Michelle and the Scott Ries family, I'd like to thank you for coming today to honor the life of Sergeant Scott Ries. Would you bow your heads in prayer with me? Lord, we come before you this afternoon heavy. None of us would have chosen the circumstances that have brought us here today, and yet here we sit. We ask, Lord, that you would meet with us. Many here are hurting. Many emotions here abound. And we come to you, Almighty God, knowing that you are near the brokenhearted and you save those crushed in spirit. And Lord, in this room, in the surrounding rooms, there are many who are brokenhearted, and their spirits are crushed. And we invite you, Lord, to descend with us today, comfort these dear lives, and minister your peace and your grace as only you can. And it's in Christ's name we pray. Amen. At a time like this, what do you say? What can be said to eliminate the hurt? How do we condense 54 years of life into a few moments? How do we distill all that Scott had done in a couple remarks? And how do we recognize the impact that this man had on each life that he touched? We can't. We can't. Yet this afternoon we will attempt to honor Scott Ries and reflect on his full life. And looking at this room, I can't but invite you each to just take a moment and look around. There is a multitude of people that Scott Ries impacted. Perhaps Scott was your son, your husband, your dad, a brother, an uncle, a friend, or a brother in blue. Scott's life impacted many, many others. And Scott wore many titles, as we just listed. One of the things that was easy to note in talking with others, law enforcement and the family, was that Scott was a teacher. I mean that he wouldn't stand here and teach, but he was a teacher. Whether he was helping a new recruit learn the difference between a short form and a full report, coaching, teaching someone the skills of fishing on Lake Erie, or what to look for in a spring turkey woods, or a fall deer woods. Scott was always teaching. And I would invite that we would allow that also. We would allow Scott to teach us one more lesson today just by looking around. One life can impact many, many, many people. May he teach us that lesson yet again today. As we continue this afternoon, I will invite Kevin O'Brien to come and read the eulogy.
Well, again, everybody, welcome. And thank you for the gift of your presence here today. Thank you for showing up for your love and support for Michelle and the girls and the whole family, and your memories of Scott. In times like this, just the simple act of gathering together is an act of love. And so again, thank you for coming. Scott Ries was a big man, well over 6 foot and built to match. He had the kind of presence that filled a doorway before he even said a word. And people who didn't know him will admit now that he could be intimidating clear across the room. But everyone who actually knew him tells the same story with a laugh. Underneath all that size was a teddy bear. That contradiction was the whole man. Because whether he was wearing a badge or standing at the boat launch on Lake Erie before sunrise, Scott spent his life doing one thing: keeping the peace. Not just enforcing it, but keeping it in his community, on his team, at home around the family table. He always wanted things to go smoothly. He wanted people safe and happy, and he was willing to plant himself in the middle of whatever mess was going on in order to make that happen. He grew up in Chippewa the way a lot of kids did before phones took over everything, outside in the woods. There were woods right behind the house where he and his brother Kevin lived, where they spent more or less their entire summer there, unless football or chores called them away. But he was a gifted athlete. He ran track and played football. He even held down first base in men's softball. Somehow quick and light on his feet despite already being the biggest kid on the field. Then in the last game or two of his senior football season, he tore his ACL. And the talk of a scholarship went out the door. But Scott adjusted the way he did to most things in his life. He simply moved on. He moved forward. Summers also meant a cabin at a place called Apple Valley, where he and Kevin kept their own little boat and fished the days away. And that tradition lasted until the family sold the cabin partway through his high school years, when sports and jobs and growing up took over the calendar instead. But it planted something in him for the rest of his life. He found his way to Hocking College down in the hills near Logan, Ohio, to study police science. And it was there that he met a nursing student named Michelle Carpenter. On May 10th, 1997, in her hometown of Logan, he married her, and for 29 years, she stood beside a man who never did anything halfway. He built his career with the same sleeves rolled up seriousness. He spent nearly 2 decades with the Wayne County Sheriff's Office before joining the Rittman Police Department in 2015. Where he rose to sergeant and took on the job of training the next generations of officers behind him. He served on SWAT, took on special investigations, and carried genuine pride in seeing the department and the people they served come out better on the other side of every call, a little bit better than they went in. Those who worked beside him reached for words like protector, courageous, and dedicated, though the word his daughters returned to most often without hesitation was simply supportive. Around the department, he was known affectionately as something of a shit magnet. The kind of sergeant who somehow always seemed to be right in the middle of it whenever the shift went sideways. Not because trouble followed him, but because that's where he believed a leader was supposed to be. In the days since he died, neighbors and strangers alike have stopped his family just to say how Scott helped them through a hard stretch of their life. He would look them in the eye and tell them to just keep going and to do better. Whatever he happened to be doing at that moment, he had a way of making you feel that nothing else in the world mattered except for you right then. If Scott had one thing he wanted the officers he led to carry forward, it was this: look out for one another. See the bigger picture and make sure that everyone is supported in appropriate ways. Do what's right, even when it isn't the popular choice, because the job is never about one person. It's about the team and about the community that team has sworn to protect. That standard mattered just as much to him at home. It was important to him that his own daughters learned to do what's right unselfishly, to think of what's best for the team rather than what's best for themselves alone, because he had built his whole life around that rule. That same instinct showed up in smaller ways that nobody kept score of: clearing a neighbor's driveway when they didn't even ask, splitting and hauling wood for someone who needed it, showing up with a truck when a job needed some extra hands. He gave that same energy to the Doylestown Lions Club whenever they needed him, quietly becoming the kind of person a community learns to lean on without ever once making a production of it. That same attention followed him home every night. Scott and Michelle raised two amazing daughters, Abby and Maddie, and he made sure that their childhoods were full of softball fields and whatever else their hearts desired. He loved being a softball dad, coaching Abby's youth teams and Maddie's team through the Ohio Stampede Travel League, which meant summers built entirely around 4 a.m. wake-up calls and McDonald's drive-through on the way to some tournament 3 hours from home, a ritual that the family still laughs about today. Later, you would find him standing on the sidelines at the Chippewa Middle School's football field as a volunteer coach, teaching kids the same game that he loved for so many years. Michelle coached middle school cheer and at the very same seasons that he was coaching football. And so between the two of them, hardly a Friday night went by that both of them weren't needed somewhere, running a concession stand or hauling equipment for the booster club. Scott wasn't, by his own admission, much of a cheer dad, but he showed up anyway, every single time. His daughters will tell you that he was the kind of father who never ran out of answers. When Abby moved into her first apartment, she woke to find it overrun with bees, 3 of them. And so she panicked and she called her dad, who did not panic, but he told her exactly what to do, step by step, calm as still water, the way he always was when someone needed him to be. That was Scott as a parent, even-keeled, endlessly patient, the person you could call on when your world was falling apart around you, knowing that he would hand you a plan instead of fear. He loved nothing more than the standing invitation lunch that he had with Abby and her fiancé, Alex. Al's was their place, and he showed up every chance he got. He was already looking forward to their wedding, and just as eager to watch Maddie cross the stage with her nursing degree, the way he'd watched Abby graduate. But Scott's love and care grew even wider as he delighted in watching his niece and nephew, Shelby and Trace, grow into the amazing people that they are becoming. Outside of work and family, Scott's whole heart lived outdoors. He hunted deer and turkey every season without fail, and there is, by his family's own count, a deer head hanging in almost every room in their house, not as trophies so much as a record of the hours that he spent outdoors with the people that he loved. He'd learned to hunt as a boy, tagging along with his own father through Saturday rabbit seasons because Sundays were off limits and every other day belonged to the dogs in the fields. He passed that same gift down without hesitation, taking his daughters hunting and fishing when they were small and taking their friends too, along with the neighborhood kids and anyone else who was interested in coming along. Because, as Michelle put it, he simply enjoyed sharing his passions with other people. In recent years, that generosity found a new home on Lake Erie. Scott bought a boat, and the word got around fast. He could have run a charter, but he never once charged a soul. He just wanted the company, and he wanted people to have the experience of being out on the water. Again, neighbors, their friends, friends of friends. It never mattered who. If you were willing to help run the tackle and pull in your limit, Scott had the boat gassed and ready before the sun came up. He took his own birthday off every year in November for a whole week because November meant deer season, and there was no better way in his mind to mark another year than to spend it exactly where he was happiest, out in the woods or standing at the rail of that boat. At home, evenings meant a campfire and a game of Guess That Tune. And if his brother Kevin and nephew happened to be playing music somewhere, Scott made sure that he was there to hear it. He'd taken up smoking meat and grilling with the same seriousness that he brought to everything else. He hosted pizza cook-offs with his friends and traded barbecue tips like trade secrets. He would even cut and split his own wood as much for exercise as for the wood itself, the kind of man who would rather spend an evening watching chainsaw reviews on YouTube than sit around doing nothing. Scott had become, to his family's great amusement, something of a YouTube regular, too, forever queued up with a history podcast or an outdoor show, and his phone was practically glued to his hand, while his family teased him as being their own personal chatty Cathy, because there was rarely a stretch of the day that he wasn't mid-conversation with somebody. Ask around and you'll find almost everybody has a favorite Scott story, usually something a little ridiculous, a little larger than life because of some fresh piece of shenanigans he'd found himself in the middle of, at work or off duty, that everyone laughing is still laughing about it years later. He had strong opinions about a good meal, too. Al and Cranston's were his two favorite places to take friends, and he'd order the same thing nearly every time, sausage and green beans, though he was just as happy with a good steak or a pork chop the size of your face. And for a man who spent his whole career keeping his composure in genuinely dangerous situations, Scott had exactly two things that could rattle him: bananas and a tomato. Ask his family about the salad that once arrived at Bob Evans with a whole tomato sitting on top of it, and you'll get the same story every time. As Michelle watched his expression start to shift, and she watched it build until she calmly said to the server, "We're good," before he could say a word. He was, by his own household's fond description, a full-grown teddy bear who could stare down real danger without blinking and be entirely undone by a tomato. Family for Scott meant showing up. It meant the pig roast that the Ries clan hosted every summer for years, a tradition that he carried north like a piece of home, or the crab boil when the pig roast wasn't in the cards. It meant the handful of summers his own family made to the Outer Banks, where he discovered his love of crabbing almost as much as he loved being on the water at home. It meant building a pond at his house where he and Michelle raised their daughters, because for reasons never fully explained, it mattered to him to have that same kind of stillness close to home. And it meant a dog at his feet. He was a lifelong German Shepherd man, But when his daughter left her golden doodle at the house one visit, the two of them became inseparable. Proof that Scott's loyalty never checked a pedigree. And speaking of German Shepherds, I was heartened to hear that Vic is home and recovering. So our prayers continue with him. Yes, Scott filled a room the way big men do, but it was never about his size that people remember. It was about the size of the space that he made for everybody standing in it. 6 foot something in life, and somehow larger than that in every memory left behind. At home, there's a boat that still isn't going anywhere for a while. It sits exactly where Scott always kept it, gassed up and ready long before sunrise, waiting on someone to climb aboard. That readiness was the whole of him, really. The invitation was always extended to neighbors and strangers and anyone who needed a reason to get outside for a few hours. When Michelle was asked what Scott would most want people to hold on to, she didn't have to think long. Value your family, value your friendships, and spend time with the people you love while you have them. So take the boat out, sit by the fire, do the things that are your passion, and do them with the people who matter to you, and make good choices along the way, because that, in the end, was the only thing that Scott ever really asked of anyone. Not accomplishment, just presence. Not achievement, just showing up for each other, the way he showed up for a lifetime of the people who needed him. Scott spent 54 years making sure that everyone got that experience. Thank you for being some of them. The boat is still at home, waiting for you. The invitation is still open. And carrying him forward now means the rest of us finally climbing on board.
For those of you who knew Scott, there were elements of that made you laugh. There were elements of that made you remember a fond story. And for those of you who did not have the privilege of meeting Scott, you just did. Thank you, Kevin. At this time, I would like to invite Ohio Attorney General Andy Wilson to the platform for his remarks, please.
Michelle, Abby, Maddie, Janelle, Kevin, and the entire family. I'm acutely aware that nothing I say from this podium, as a matter of fact, nothing anybody says from this podium or says to you today is going to ease your suffering or lessen your loss. Although the passage of time might help, nothing is ever going to completely fill the hole in your hearts and the hole in your lives that this tragedy has caused. And it's such a tragedy. It's a tragedy for you. It's a tragedy for the community. It's a tragedy for the Rittman Police Department. And it's a tragedy for the profession as a whole. And all I can say to you this afternoon from the bottom of my heart to all of you is that I'm so incredibly sorry for your loss. I'm sorry that you're having to endure this. And we are so incredibly thankful for Scott's service and his sacrifice for his community and for all of us. I've been to way too many funerals for law enforcement officers in my career. And part of the reason for that is the unfortunate truth that there are evil people on this earth who are willing to cause pain and suffering and violence on their community and on the men and women who were responsible for protecting that community. But another part of it is that, and this is the part I'm so incredibly thankful for, is that there is an amazing group of men and women like you see throughout the sanctuary this afternoon. Men and women who put on that uniform every single day, and they willingly put themselves in harm's way for us, for our families, for our friends, for our neighbors. Men and women who, when that call comes in, they don't hesitate. When someone is in danger, when someone needs help, when someone is scared, they don't hesitate. They don't wait. They go straight towards the person in need to help, to protect, to comfort. In these times of grief, in these times of sadness, in these times of remembrance, that's what I try to focus on. I focus on the fact that we who do not wear the uniform, we're so incredibly lucky to have you that do. On our worst hour, on our worst minute, on that worst day, the truth is we need you to be at your best. And the truth is that we need you. And that's what Scott was. He was a protector. He was a provider. He was a servant who put the needs of others ahead of the needs of himself. And it cost him everything. It cost you everything. And the sad truth is that we, the community, those who truly benefited from his lifetime of service, man, we can never adequately pay you back for your loss and for your sacrifice. But each of us here today and each of us listening, we have an obligation to honor Scott's service and to honor his sacrifice. And there are several ways that we can do that. First, we can never, ever forget who he is, what he did, and how he served. I don't have to tell you. You heard, you know firsthand. Your dad, your son, your husband, your brother. He was an amazing man. The community loved him. Everybody who knew him, everybody who interacted with him loved him. All of us, we can never stop talking about him. Everyone here who knew him, everyone in the community who knew him, we have to tell his stories. We have to keep his legacy alive through the oral history of who he was and how he served. Future generations need to know his story. They need to know what kind of man he was and what he meant to the people that he touched. The second way that we can honor him is by honoring the profession that he served. Scott dedicated his entire adult life to law enforcement. He loved the agencies he served with. He loved his brothers and sisters that he served with. And he loved the profession as a whole. We can honor him by honoring the men and women who serve and protect like he did. For those of us who don't use the uniform, it's as simple as, look, when you see someone in uniform, just take the time to go up, approach them, and thank them for what they do. It means so much in this day and age. It's also as simple as, look, when you get pulled over for speeding or when you have an interaction with law enforcement, don't make their job harder. Just listen. Don't argue, don't talk back, and let's support them in all we do. Let's take it a step further. When we hear someone talking negatively about law enforcement, stand up for them, all right? Don't let them get away. Challenge them. Stand up for the profession. To our brothers and sisters who wear the uniform, every time you put that uniform on, do so with pride. Know that what you do matters to the people that we do it for. know that Scott and far too many before him made the ultimate sacrifice in the service of this profession. And the final way I think that we can honor Scott's sacrifice and his service is for each and every one of us to live every day to its fullest. Man, love, laugh, serve, and lean into everything that life has to offer. The truth is, it's a sad truth, the truth is that whether we get 54 years or whether we get 90 years, it's too short. All of it's too short. We have an obligation to live life to its fullest and to make the world around us better for everybody that we come in contact with. Scott did that. He loved his family, he loved his community, he loved his profession, and ultimately he loved others who needed him more than he loved himself. There is no greater love that you can show the world than that. And each of us has an obligation to honor his sacrifice in how we live the rest of our lives. Look, thank you so much for just giving me a few minutes to honor him. And I'm so incredibly sorry for your loss. Thank you.
Now I would invite retired Police Chief Mike Berg to the platform to speak on behalf of Rittman Police.
Today, we gather with heavy hearts to honor the life of an extraordinary officer, a devoted public servant, and a cherished husband, father, son, brother, friend, and colleague, Sergeant Scott Ries. We come together not only to mourn a profound loss, but to celebrate a life defined by courage, integrity, and selfless service. Being a law enforcement officer is more than a profession, it's a calling. It's a commitment to stand between danger and the innocent to serve others, even when the cost may be great. Every day, Scott proudly put on the uniform, knowing the risks, yet he answered that call without hesitation. To Scott, his badge represented far more than authority. It represented compassion, sacrifice, and an unwavering dedication to protect the citizens of Rittman and the surrounding communities. Behind the uniform was a man who loved his family deeply, laughed with friends a lot, cared for his fellow officers, and believed in making a difference, one person, one call, and one day at a time. To those who served alongside him, Scott was a trusted partner and a loyal friend. To the community, he was a guardian. To his family and friends, he was so much more. Scott was a loving husband, devoted father, cherished son, brother, and friend. Those who knew him best will remember not only his courage, but also his kindness, generosity, humility, and unwavering character. Today we grieve because a life of purpose was taken far too soon. Yet even in our sorrow, we find strength in the example Scott set. His legacy is not defined solely by the tragic events of Sunday, but by the countless lives he touched throughout his life. Every person he helped, every family he comforted, every crisis he faced with courage, and every quiet act of service, he has left a lasting mark on the community. To Michelle, Abby, Maddie, and the entire Ries family, your sacrifice is beyond measure. while no words can ease the pain of your loss, please know that Scott will never be forgotten. His service and sacrifice have become part of a legacy that will endure for generations. We grieve with you, and we honor your unimaginable loss. Your husband, father, son, brother, and hero left a lasting imprint on every life he touched. His story was shorter than it should have been, but it's not unfinished. It lives on in the love you shared, in the lives he changed, and in the example he leaves behind. To the officers of the Rittman Police Department, the Wayne County Sheriff's Office, and all of our brothers and sisters in law enforcement, today we mourn one of our own. We also renew our promise that Scott's memory will remain with us every time we pin on our badge, answer a call, or stand watch over our communities. Scott's watch has ended, but ours continues, strengthened by the example he left behind. Though we say goodbye today, we also say thank you. Thank you for your courage when others stepped back. Thank you for your compassion when others needed hope. Thank you for your sacrifice made in service to something greater than yourself. May we honor your memory not only with our words, but with lives that reflect the values you embodied: honor, integrity, duty, compassion, and love of others. Your watch is over. Rest easy, Sergeant Ries. We will remember you, we will honor you, and we will never forget your sacrifice.
Mayor Rudy Arnold, would you please come now?
Good afternoon. I'm Rudy Arnold, Mayor of the City of Rittman. I stand here a few different places at once. I speak for a city that's grieving. I speak alongside a family that is in the midst of immeasurable loss. I speak to everyone. Some of you knew Scott your whole life. Some of you are meeting him for the first time today. So let me start with something you may have already seen. This week, the community lined the streets, hundreds of them, in the heat, standing shoulder to shoulder along the route as they brought Scott home. Parents lifting their children up so they could see. Neighbors who've never met, all of them quiet, all of them there. And if you were watching from somewhere else, you might have asked a simple question. Who was this man? Who was Scott Ries that so many people would stop and stand still for him? Let me try to tell you. Scott was a husband, a son, a brother, a coach, a teammate, a neighbor, a friend. More than anything, he was a dad. When I talked with his wife, Michelle, and with the girls, that's what came first. Girl dad. He loved it. You could feel it in the room, just the way they said his name. His mom told me of a softball trip to Columbus for one of his daughter's tournaments. She said Scott snored so loud in that hotel room that the whole family had to get up the next morning and buy earplugs. But that's a dad who was there. The long drives, the ball fields, the early mornings. He showed up, even when it cost everyone a good night's sleep. But I want to tell you a short story about myself now. But it's really about Scott. Years ago, I told a friend of mine, I said, I love you. And somebody overheard it, and it confused them. And they said, why would you say that? You don't mean it. But I did. Because there's more than one kind of love. It's not romantic. It can simply be a love of people.
a love that wants good for everyone around you. That's the love that Scott lived every single day. A man who grew up beside Scott and played high school football with it said it much better than I can. He told me yesterday, he said, Scott spent 7 seconds protecting me on the football field, and he spent the rest of his life protecting others. 7 seconds on a Friday night and 31 years for the rest of us. You don't give a life like that to strangers. You give it to people you love. So hear me. Whether Scott ever said the words to you or not, he loved you. You don't have to wonder about it. Just look at his life. That's what those people on the street were standing for. It wasn't just for an officer. It was a neighbor who loved them. And when we lose someone like that, the question turns to us. What do we do now? Here's what we do. We pick up where he carried. It's not the badge, but the love. We walk up to the person on the edge of the room. We check on our neighbors. We make the drive to the tournament. We say the words and we mean them. It's how a community this size tries to answer for a loss this big. That's how Scott keeps protecting us. Through every one of us who chooses to live the way he lived. In Scott's remembrance card, there's a poem, and it's for a man who loved the water and fishing and hunting and those quiet early mornings. So many of you knew that side of him. The message is gentle. He isn't gone, just gone ahead, going fishing. So rest easy, Scott. The line's in the water, the sun's up, you've earned the quiet. To Michelle, to Abby and Maddie, to Janelle, to Kevin, to all of Scott's family and friends, to Christy and McKinley McWilliams, and to all of their family and friends, to all the first responders, to everyone impacted by this tragedy. I love you, Rittman loves you, and we're here for you, and we mean it.
When I met with the family, I asked if we could spend a few moments looking at Psalm 23, which is a common passage, and we'll find out why here shortly. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The human author of this text is David. He was a king of Israel, and we often see paintings of him as this timid little frail lad playing a harp with little lambs frolicking around. And yet history would tell a much, much different story of who David was. David was a warrior. David was a warrior who did warrior things. And I look in this room, and this room is filled with warriors who at times are called to do warrior things. There was a poem when David was a servant to, at that time, King Saul. Saul had slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands. So David was a man's man. In this room, David would be at the front of the line. And I wanted to draw our attention to that because that's who wrote this. Yes, was David a shepherd? Yes, was David a musician? Yes, he was. But he was much more of a warrior than this timid, frail lad we often envision. And I find it fascinating to see how this warrior started this passage for us. He says, "The Lord is my shepherd." I find that fascinating. He did not say, "The Lord is a shepherd," which would have been true. He did not say, "The Lord is the shepherd," which also would have been true. This warrior said, "The Lord is my shepherd." And I find it interesting to think that this man who accomplished all he accomplished wanted initially for everyone around to know that he needed a guide. He needed a shepherd. And we do as well. We can portray a persona that depicts us as being all that. And yet, friends, when we lay our heads down at night, we know we're just men and women like everyone else. But this warrior king wanted us to know that he needed a shepherd, and it was the Lord. He goes on to write, "I shall not want." We'll go into that a little further. It won't be an exhaustive study, but we'll look at that phrase of not wanting. Being content, being satisfied. We'll look at that a little later. Verse 2, he goes on to say, "He maketh me to lie down in green pastures." And before we get to the lie down part, I would ask you, where in the Middle East would you find lush green pastures? Wherever you would find them, it would be due to the skill and the handiwork of the shepherd. And David is recognizing his Lord shepherding him, preparing these green pastures. Sheep are funny creatures. They need many things to be in order for them to be at rest. David tells us here in this passage that God provides all of those things for us to be at rest. He leadeth me beside the still waters. Again, I will rest in his care. I will wait for his provision. Verse 3 is interesting to law enforcement as well. He restoreth my soul. David, this warrior, this mighty man of valor, needed help at times. We do as well. Sheep, particularly in the Middle East, they're hot, and they would seek to find a comfortable spot to lie down. And if there was a swale in the ground, a sheep might lay in it, and as they laid down, flip off of their feet and then not be able to get up. That's what this specifically is talking about with regard to sheep. They could not get up. And this is David helping us see that sometimes, though we're warriors, we need help getting up. And that is not to be overlooked. He leadeth me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Righteous paths, just paths, proper paths. Notice it does not say easy paths or convenient paths. He prepares righteous paths for us, some of which we struggle to understand. But David is teaching us here that that shepherd can be trusted. He goes on to say, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. In a valley, if there is a shadow of death, what must exist for a shadow to be cast? The object itself. So if the shadow of death is there, so is death, somewhere. But for a shadow to be cast, what else also must be present? A source of light. And that is where it goes on to say, I won't be afraid. I will choose not to rehearse the scary noises or the scary objects, but I will focus on the voice of my shepherd. Though death is there, though the shadow of death is there, I will not be afraid because, Lord, you are with me. The rod and the staff, they comfort me. His discipline and protection brings me comfort. There is bounty in the midst of conflict as he prepares a table before me. And it goes on in verse 6 to conclude with goodness and mercy following me all the days of my life. That is amazing. If you would look behind you in your life, is the wake your life is leaving, would goodness and mercy be accurate descriptions of the life you live? David says it can be through his Lord. And then I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. What an amazing promise for those who can answer in verse 1 that the Lord is my shepherd. Even as a warrior, we need picked up. Even as a warrior, we need to acknowledge that at times we need help and we need guided and we need God to make these provisions for us. Told you we would get back to the phrase, I shall not want. What does that mean? It means I shall not be in want. It does not certainly mean that there were never times of need, because David certainly had times of need. It simply meant that he was content with the shepherd's provision for him. He was satisfied with the shepherd's management of his life. And friends, we live in a day where content is a hard word to find an example of in people's lives. We're always longing for something more, something bigger, something better, something more. David is teaching us here that if the Lord is our shepherd, we need not live that way. And one lesson I'm trying to learn, I'd love to tell you I have learned it, but I haven't. I'm working on it, is to be grateful for what I do have and not to be disgruntled with what I do not have. The Good Shepherd has given me everything I need, according to this, everything I need. Perhaps not everything I want, but everything I need. And times just like this event this week are further reminders for me to be grateful for what I do have. 25 years ago, this lesson started for me at a funeral. I was at a funeral of a 13-year-old boy who turned his bicycle in front of a truck and was killed. I knew him very well. And at the funeral, as often funerals have, someone comes and stands and speaks about the deceased. And this individual I did not know stood up, and he said how grateful he was. At that moment, my friends, I was not feeling grateful. He said how grateful he was to have known this boy. I think he was a school teacher, and Nick was a cool kid. He was one of those kids that was just special. And the teacher was so thankful to have had him for 1 year. I was not. I was looking at that as, he's 13. He has all of this life ahead. That was the lens with which I was looking through that event. And even friends today, 54. Some of you might think that's pretty old. I assure you it is not. In my view, Scott had a lot left. In Kurt's view. But rather than focusing on that, I've tried since that day, 25 years ago, to be thankful for what I do have. I knew Nick his whole life. Scott, I knew him when he worked at the sheriff's office. Not well. We weren't enemies, but I won't pretend we were buddies. Some of you are dear, dear friends with this man, family with this man. And some of you, sadly, never got to know him. So I would just humbly suggest that we try to change our perspective at this tragedy rather than looking at how awful it is, and it is. But let's be grateful for those moments, those memories, those events, those irritations that we had with this man. And be thankful that we had the privilege to know him. Had the privilege. Some of you knew him for 54 years. I did not. But can we try to adjust our thinking? That we are grateful for what we have instead of focus on the irritation of what we do not. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for being with us here today. We thank you for the privilege of knowing Scott. Our hearts are heavy, are very heavy, because this is not what we would think is best. And yet, Lord, here we are. I continue to ask, not only for now and today, but in the days going forward, the weeks, the months, when missing Scott is such an ache in our hearts, that, Lord, you would reach down and you would comfort those that are hurting and bind up those with a broken heart. Meet with us, wrap your arms around Michelle and the girls and this dear family as they will navigate a new chapter without Scott. Lord, encourage us, strengthen us, we pray, as only you can. May we see you as our shepherd. May we welcome you as that guide and leader of our hearts. In Jesus' name, amen. I will ask all to remain seated for Scott's final call.
Rittman dispatch to all agencies, please stand by for broadcast. Rittman dispatch to Unit 384. Rittman dispatch to Unit 384. Rittman dispatch to Sergeant Ries, Unit 384. Rittman dispatch to all units, negative contact at 384. 384, Sergeant 7. Sergeant Scott David Ries, age 54, responded to his final call for service on July 5th, 2026. Sergeant Ries dedicated 10 years of service to the citizens of the city of Rittman and over 30 years to the law enforcement profession. On July 5th, he made the ultimate sacrifice, laying down his own life while protecting the citizens of Rittman and his fellow officers. Like so many calls before it, Sergeant Ries answered his last call knowing the risk, yet he went in without hesitation, with courage, valor, and an unwavering commitment to those he served and to those who served beside him. He was a true public servant and a true hero. Sergeant Ries, the men and women of the Rittman Police Department, Wayne County Sheriff's Office, and Sugar Grove Police Department will remember you always for your courage, kindness, positivity, infectious smile, and genuine compassion for the citizens you served so faithfully. Your courage and sacrifice will forever live in the hearts of your brothers and sisters in Rittman and agencies beyond. Rest easy knowing your brothers and sisters behind the badge will watch over your family in your stead. Sergeant Ries, your mission is complete. Your brothers and sisters now have the watch. May you rest in eternal peace. 384, you're 37 for the final time. You've got it from here.
I will ask everyone to remain in your seats while our law enforcement officers are dismissed row by row. And would you exit through the main doors? After our law enforcement have exited, our non-law enforcement guests will be released and are to exit through the north doors.
It is now 2:05 on this Friday afternoon. I'm Russ Mitchell from the WKYC studios. You've just been watching funeral services for Rittman Police Sgt. Scott Ries, who was killed in the line of duty on Sunday night. That service being held at the Northside Christian Church in Wadsworth. During the roughly 1 hour and 5 minute ceremony, we heard from several people who knew Sergeant Ries. We heard from Ohio Attorney General Andy Wilson, also heard from Rudy Arnold, the mayor of Rittman, and the chaplain there. I'm sorry I did not catch the chaplain's name, but he gave obviously a very emotional talk there at the end. And of course, at the end of the ceremony, the always emotional final call of the officer. A funeral session is going to begin right now from the church to Rittman Cemetery, where he will be laid to rest. This is a live look outside of the church right now. You see police officers getting to their motorcycles and vehicles. We're told as many as 1,000 law enforcement vehicles are there and will accompany that procession to the cemetery. Also want to talk about Christine McWilliams and her 13-year-old daughter, McKinley, who were also killed in the shootings. Their funerals will be held tomorrow at Rittman United Methodist Church. Calling hours are from 4 to 7, with that funeral taking place at 7 o'clock. That concludes our coverage this afternoon. We thank you for joining us for this very solemn occasion today. More tonight at Channel 3 News at 4, 5, 6, 7, and 11. Of course, we're always at WKYC.com, the WKYC app, and WKYC Plus, as once again you see officers getting ready for that procession to the cemetery. This procession is expected to take about 20 minutes, and we are not going to obviously show anything at the burial site. You will be able to see the procession on our website, WKYC.com. Once again, more tonight on our newscasts. For now, I'm Russ Mitchell at the Channel 3 studios. Good afternoon.
hang on if you know. I can clarify that that's what he has, because he has 3 that need to get in.
Yeah, I was just asking how they're going to transition. Sure. Because we're only... I got it. Don't worry about it. Dry, yes. Hey, it's Devin. Do you hear me? Okay, just checking. I was trying to see if this is still going on at the top of the show. If they want to take it live.
Yes, this is right in front of